So I am here at Orchard Pointe Baptist Church with two of my close friends, Zach Vaux and Neal Brown, who I will be introducing in a moment. But the reason why we're here is because there's a story that needs to be told. And I want these guys to sort of help me tell it, because it won't come out as good from me, because they're the ones who have lived it. So without further ado, let me introduce my friends. This is Zach Vaux. Zach, would you just say hi? And Neal Brown.
Hi.
They are both pastors and longtime friends. And the way we got to know each other was we've been part of our North Georgia prayer network, prayer group that has been praying together for 9 years now. And Neal, I really feel like you're the person that got us going in this direction, but Neal insisted on praying for revival. Every single time we met, we would take prayer requests on our families, what's going on in church, what's going on in ministry, and what's going on in town, people that needed to come to know the Lord, or people that were sick. But we were always at least praying for revival. And so what I want to do is just start by letting these guys give a little bit of their backstory, how they got into ministry and what their situation was, their context, and then we'll go from there. So which one of you wants to go first? We didn't really discuss this ahead of time. Zach grunted first, so we'll let you go first.
I was born in 1984. That's where we'll start.
That's okay. Let's keep going from there. All right. Let's fast forward. You're going to have to skip a few things.
Okay.
But you got into ministry.
So felt called into the ministry as a teenager, went to school. There was just multiple years there. Didn't really feel like I needed to get into the ministry yet. And felt, though, that God wanted us to plant a church. And so my wife and I felt that's what God wanted us to do. It's a crazy idea because we were not prepared in any sense of the word. And so started Orchard Church in 2008.
2008, when you were just doing that math, 24 years old.
Yeah, young, dumb, and broke. I'm still all of those. I'm
Except for young. I was going to say that we got to take away one of them. Yeah, all right. Yeah. And so, Neal, let's give now you can start with your ministry, and it's going to be a little bit of a longer story.
Well,
there.
just very quickly, I was raised in a Christian home. Thankful for that. I was saved when I was 13. And when I was in my early 20s, I was already married, had a baby that our oldest son had just been born. I really felt like God was calling me into the ministry, and there's kind of a long story behind all of that, but just the short story. God called me in the ministry, ended up pastoring a church in our hometown. Then we moved 30 miles south, and I pastored there for 6.5 years. And then in 1992, we moved to this area, and I became the pastor at Cedar Hill Baptist Church. Ultimately, it became Heritage Pointe Baptist Church. We changed the name a few years ago. And in 2022, just shy of my 30th anniversary at the church, I retired.
Man. All right. And so these two guys, met, it had to have been about 9 years ago. I mean, and Zach came first, but then Neal came shortly thereafter. We had another pastor that was praying with us at the time, Doyle Allen, if anyone knows him.
We kicked him out.
Yeah, we kicked him out. No, he moved and he left us for the Air Force.
Yeah, I miss it.
But you guys there was throughout the entire time that we were meeting together, there was a consistent prayer request that came from each of you, a different prayer request. Zach, would you share with that and explain the reasons behind your prayer request and what it was?
We've always been praying for a facility. We were in a storefront almost since we started. So we moved into that facility 2010, 11. We had been there for, I think, 10 years. We've done multiple remodels, preparing the place, making the place nice. The last few years, the landlord didn't want to do any repairs, any maintenance. So when it rained outside, it would rain inside. And it
literally rain.
Like not just buckets. We even got the baptistry. and we would put it under the places to catch all the water that was going to be coming into the facility. So that part of it was very disheartening. One, because you've invested so much in a facility. Two, you're not wanting to move forward anymore. You don't want visitors to show up. It's embarrassing. And so not only like physically was the building decaying, but mentally and spiritually, it really began to take a toll on us, took a toll on me. And I was almost to the point like, hey, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. This is a battle that's not even fun. So,
yeah. And just I think people do need to hear, we had a prayer group that met every week. Yeah. And this has come out of your mouth multiple times, but just so people can hear it, because there are other people that are like, how do I sustain myself? How do I keep going? How important was having a prayer group where you're regularly bringing the pains of ministry to a group and praying over those? How important was that for sustaining you throughout that time of, we need a facility, but we're not getting one. We need a facility, but we're not getting one. How important was it?
So maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'd be as bold to say you're foolish not to be a part of some group of pastors to pray with you and lead you during ministry. I think it's foolish. When this group started, I came out of a very bad time in ministry. And so I understood the importance of being connected with other pastors and having a group of people that were in ministry that, you cannot share everything with really sometimes your family, if they go to your church. You cannot share everything with your friends, depending upon who they are. There's really only a select group of people who know what you're going through and dealing with. And to have some of those people come around you and just pray with you and be there, to not have that, I would say, and I could be wrong, I've been wrong, I think once, and I'm 40. So it's foolish. You need to have a group of people around you praying with you. So it's been, for me, one of the best things that I've done.
Okay, thank you for saying that. Yeah.
How much money do I get for that?
Not one dime. But the treasures in heaven. Treasures in heaven. Okay. Yes, that's the default Christian. You're good. I'm cheap, and you're good. Neal, can you share what your consistent prayer request was, besides praying for revival, just for what you would ask for in praying for this church? Just kind of give us the general outlines of it.
Yeah, I was praying for God to raise up leaders. We needed men who would step up to be leaders in the church. We needed people who would step up to do outreach, who would help us to grow, to execute when we did activities, to volunteer, to do those kinds of things. We wanted, I knew, even though I'm 65, I know that the sustainability of a church is based on having young families, to have young families, young children, youth, that sort of thing. And so those were some of the things that I prayed for consistently with the group on Thursday morning.
And if I were putting it into just a word, I'd say you were constantly praying for church revitalization.
Yeah.
You were needing some revitalization to come here, and however the Lord wanted to answer that, you would throw out multiple requests to that end. So then, and how long we were praying? We had to have been praying for 4 or 5 years on those topics at least, right?
Yeah, because I think our campaign started 18. So it was already kind of, not only are we trying to raise money, but this is...
You were looking at that beforehand, yeah. So I think, I want to say it goes back to maybe even 2016, we were starting to pray about these kinds of things, at least. So then just give a bit of a, and I don't know how it never, ever occurred to us that you two might have ended up becoming the answers to your own prayers, each of you, because that's really how it happened. But can you guys, and you don't have to even look back at me, just sort of tell it with each other of, can you sort of lay out that story for people to hear of how did this come about that Orchard Church would merge with Heritage Pointe Church, and ultimately the facility would be renewed and the churches would be merged and renewing, and in the process of it, not done, obviously, but always a work in progress. Can you guys share a little bit to that?
Well, let me start, because what happened is that when I retired in 2022, I was still very closely connected with the people at Heritage Pointe, and was offering some guidance to them and everything. And because there is such a shortage of pastors, they were having problems finding a pastor. And I will just tell you that one day in some of my prayer time, the Lord just kind of spoke to my spirit and said, hey, have you ever thought about that Orchard Church needs a facility and Heritage Pointe needs a pastor, and that would solve two problems in one thing? And so I prayed about that. I talked to my wife about it. And then I prayed that, okay, Lord, I was Gideon, and I put that fleece out there, and I said, and I don't know if Zach even knows this or not, but I just said, okay, Lord, if I'm supposed to mention this to Zach, then you orchestrate where we're the only two at prayer group this Thursday morning.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And so that Thursday morning, we were the only two that showed up.
How about that?
And I'll just say that's rare. I think I miss maybe 3 to 4 a year.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And so we were meeting in your children's area and everything. And so I just asked Zach, I said, hey, because he and I had numerous conversations about, even though he came from a Church of God background, but he talked a lot about Southern Baptist life, and he on several occasions, numerous occasions, he would say, I could pastor a Southern Baptist church pretty easy. And I felt like that our spirits had joined to the point that, yeah, he could do that. So I just asked him one Thursday morning when it was just the two of us, I said, hey, have you and your church, have y'all ever thought about becoming a Southern Baptist congregation? And I didn't tell him what the Lord was revealing to me at that time. I just asked that question. And he kind of gave this little smirky grin, and he said, well, I've been talking to Dan Hyde about that. And he had been talking to Dan about them becoming a Southern Baptist congregation. And so when he said that, I began to kind of question him about, would you be open to? And I said, how would you feel about maybe doing a merger with Heritage Pointe and everything? And so we spent probably an hour and a half that day talking about some of these things. And then a week or two later, we were by ourselves again. And we talked about it again. And it really began to feel like that God was saying, this is what I want to do. And so I gave Zach the name of some of the leadership here at Heritage Pointe for him to contact them. And I asked him to give me a day or two to contact them and say, hey, I've given your name and number to somebody that may be an answer to prayer. And so from that point then, Zach contacted them, and I'll hand the ball off to you to pick up from there, because I was kind of bowing out of it and let you.
Yeah. I mean, you're retired. You're not even paid for this anymore.
Yeah.
Well, my main takeaway for today is that you prayed that it would just be us. I always looked at that time as it was just us, as divine from God already. But now knowing that you prayed about that, that's like, I could replay that over and over. Because I do see God's hand has been all over this. From the beginning. He's a little slow. I'll just be honest with you. I don't think he was on the track team.
Oh my goodness.
But his timing's always right.
It's always right.
Nervous theologically. Not sure how to respond to a pastor saying that.
So I contacted the individuals in regards to the church, and we set down a time to meet and met with them here in the fellowship hall, and really just kind of wanted to hear their thoughts, their ideas, where they were at, because I didn't want to come in, trying to sell a bag of goods. I didn't know where they would be and what was going on. But the conversation really changed quickly into merging together. It really wasn't like, here's 30 different options and maybe which one we need to do.
Because initially one of the thoughts was maybe we rent out space, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. But even in that meeting, that first meeting, one of the ladies from Heritage Pointe, they have some incredible women, that just praying women, godly women. One of them in that meeting just said, I've been praying about this, and I know this is what God wants to do. And I went and watched a sermon of all the sermons that are on YouTube, and the one that she picked out spoke to her in that moment, and it was just like, geez, like God is in this. It's just been one thing after another that you sit back and say, this was no coincidence, right? So we met in October, and we began to put in play what things would look like. I came and preached for them from October to December. In December, we decided, I talked with our church, and I was preaching here, just talking with them through the process. In December, mid-December, we merged, and that was our first service here. And so that's kind of been the process since.
And so, I guess just if I'm drawing something out of the story, just things that I want to make sure that everyone's heard in case they didn't, come to this conclusion. This was years in the making of praying for something, years of being, of experiencing a pain, really, in both of your ministries, of longing for something to happen and it not happening, but being faithful to pray about it, and then also being sustained in the place of prayer to keep praying and working toward that end. And then, what was it? It's the incarnation story of, and suddenly there was with the angel. There was an and suddenly move of God. It really was. Everything got wrapped up in just a few months, and then years of all of that. Now, backstory that some people don't know is that you had it was starting in 2018 that you had a capital campaign because you were trying to raise money. Was that when you started your capital campaign?
COVID was 2020, so it was end of 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, in 2019, we started the capital campaign, raised the money. That was a miracle within itself. Raised the money in 2 years that we felt God, placing on our heart to raise. And that was a miracle. But then we waited for 2 years. And that was the most agonizing 2 years of,
all sorts of questions of, am I a failure in leadership? Both of you wrestling with those.
Yeah, am I a failure? Did we mess this up? Because Lord, you provided for this, but we're not seeing anything. And believe me, I was trying on every front.
Y'all even looked at some buildings, looked at some property, and nothing ever, from our prayer group time, you said nothing ever worked.
Nothing ever worked. Nothing ever came to fruition.
Things looked promising for a minute, and then hopes were dashed. But part of that process was even thinking about becoming, I didn't realize that the part about, or had you been thinking about becoming a Southern Baptist, part of it was thinking, we're kind of on our own as a non-denominational church, and you were looking at a few denominations that might be a fit, and that's part of why you were having a conversation with Dan Hyde, who's over the Northwest Georgia Baptist Association here. Right. So I didn't even realize that tied into the story too, that you were on a journey and you were seeking, and that's part of what brought that forward. And same with Neal. Never, up even to the finish line, never quit trying, never quit exploring, never quit asking or praying. And I think that that's just a really important part of the story, because there's got to be, I don't even know how many pastors are out there that are, I'm the church planner on my last leg, or I'm doing everything to revitalize, and stuff just keeps not working. And there really is a lesson here of like, unless God wants to move in this way, we can knock and ask, and he's not going to do it, especially if it's not his timing, really, is what this was.
And one of the neat things that I see is that we had worked probably the first 20 years that I was here to be debt-free, because they had a sizable debt when I came. So we had worked to be debt-free. So that was a positive that I shared with Zach, that, you know, and what is so amazing is not everything, but there are a lot of the things that they have done with the money that y'all raised to renovate the building, because we had spent so much time and energy on trying to get out of debt. It had only been in the last 5 years that I was here that we had been able to do some things to kind of renovate and upgrade the building. But there are so many things that they have done since the merger that we really wanted to do. We just didn't have the resources to do it. And in God's timing, he brought the two congregations together, and you know, Heritage Pointe brought a debt-free facility to the table, and a need for a pastor and everything, and they brought a pastor and leadership with them and money to provide to do the renovations, and so it just, you know, it was, you know, and I think that you keep talking about that there are other pastors out there, and I would say to some of these other pastors to think outside the box and to think about some of these things, because what I see happening in America is that because churches are struggling financially and numerically and all, that a merger can solve a lot of problems, because now there are not two churches paying insurance and maintenance costs and utilities and everything. It is all one.
Right.
You know,
and it really it's a team effort on multiple levels. From the debt-free to saving up money. There's outreach happening here in exciting ways, but it wouldn't have been possible without both of you working your tails off, even to the point of pain, in your separate areas. Yeah. And you know what I love about this story is that, you know, this makes good on Neal held the line here and brought that debt down, and you held the line over there, and we're trying to prepare for the future. Both of you are preparing for the future in different ways. And then the other side of it that I think we need to remember, that I think we often forget, is that the work of the church is a multi-generational work, and that people need to be thinking about, I have a finish line for me, but that doesn't mean that Christ's work in this church is done. And so, you know, when you handed this off, all of this is possible because you were holding the line where you were. And just so that people hear it, it's a 14.5 acre piece of property in Fort Oglethorpe, still within the city boundaries. It's one of it is this area is growing like crazy. You can't turn around without seeing something being built. And I am sick and tired of seeing churches turned into, you know, apartments. I mean, yes, we need apartments. There is a housing crisis. I'm not against apartments and more housing being built, but I don't want to see churches turned into that. There's plenty of other land where you can see that happen, but it just seems like every time I turn around, there's a church closing. It's turning into some kind of a apartment or fast food kind of a place. And that's not going to be the heritage of this place, right? See what I did there? Heritage Pointe. Here, yeah. So the name even merged. It's Orchard Pointe Church now. And you've done tens of thousands of dollars worth of renovations, and we'll get some B-roll of that so that it's on so people can see some of that, because I do think it's important to see, like, this is a whole new place, and there's potential for decades and decades worth of ministry to happen here on this piece of land that's right off of a Highway 2A.
Yeah,
Just an
it's
incredible
major
location.
thoroughfare, and almost strategically in the center of the county.
Yeah.
And everything, and just so that people know that may not know this area, Adam, that just to the west, they're building multiple apartment townhouses and everything.
Basically walking distance. Really.
Yeah, within walking distance and everything. And then to the east, basically in walking distance, they're building the new CHI Memorial Georgia Hospital and everything. And so I believe that this area is going to really be the hub of everything that happens, because even just to the north and east of where the hospital is being built is all of the county complex, the library, the colonnade, the senior center, the health department, the new college and career academy, everything there. So the church is strategically located, and I'm just, I'm excited when I drive by, when I come on Thursday morning for prayer group. I am excited about what's happening here, that to know that without God's timing, there was the potential that they could have closed the doors.
Yeah. And same with Zach's church for a different reason.
Yeah. That and so it excites me that God, and I'm very humbled that I feel like God used me to play just a small part in what's going on here. I mean, it really humbles me that God would look at me and say, I want you to, because all I did was mention, and then God did the rest.
That's a big part.
I was just God's mouthpiece that day to say, hey, have you ever thought about this?
So we basically have told the story, but is there anything that you would just want someone else to hear? Some church member or a pastor, just some kind of like closing thoughts that you might have about all this?
Man, stay in it. And
because you wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have seen it. And man, there's been so many times that I've been ready to give up. Even when things are going great, you're just like, I don't know. Just stay faithful. And again, get a group of people around you, a group of pastors, people who pray, who will listen to you. And that is so important. So I don't want to simplify that. So yeah, stay faithful, stay in it, keep praying.
And can I jump into this? Paul talks about how God delivered him, and God will deliver him, and will deliver him again in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, right? Just so that people hear it, because people they'll see a video. It's like it's the Facebook post where everything's going hunky dory and it's perfect. They'll see all the beautiful things that have happened. And there'll be people drooling over, gosh, a 14.5 acre campus. And you've had no problems at all since, right? It's been completely easy, no trials. All the trials are gone. You don't even need the prayer group anymore.
Yeah, this is my last.
It's still hard. It's still hard.
It's still very hard.
Still a lot of work. A blessing is full of lots of hard work. It's not like just because you got lots of prayers answered that you're done. It's like this is why you have the regular bread and butter that keeps you going even after blessings come, because the blessings are still, it's the cares and the riches of the world, both the good things and the bad things that can choke out the word of God.
It is running the marathon. And you have those moments, you run by. I never done this before. I just see people do it. They run by and get some water and like,
yeah, I'm not running a marathon.
And then they got to keep going at it. Yeah. So there's a refreshing moments, but yeah, you just got to keep moving forward. And it may look great, but sometimes they're in the midst of a battle themselves. And sometimes Facebook and seeing other churches post can be the most damaging things to your heart. Because you're like, man, I'm not doing good. Man, I don't have what they have. And so just protect what you watch, what you look at, where you're getting fed.
Good words.
I just want to add one thing, that this church is on the highest point between Fort Oglethorpe and Ringgold. So I think that God has left it here as a lighthouse.
Literally on a hill.
Yeah.
Literally a light on a hill that cannot be hid, so that this community can see what is happening. And my prayer is, continued prayer for Orchard Point, is that God will use Zach and the people here to grow the kingdom. And so if there are lay people that happen to watch this video, I know it's kind of geared to pastors, but if there are lay people that happen to watch this and they're searching for some place to get plugged in, I would say, come get plugged in at Orchard Point.
Now you owe him money. You knew exactly where I was going. No, just want to say thank you to you both for your faithfulness in prayer, faithfulness to continue. You know, I trust that God, one way or the other, will bring renewal and revival to this area. And whenever that story gets told, I hope this story is told as well, as far as how you guys have been faithful to just keep plugging along. We're going to keep praying. What is the old pray until something happens push? You've been doing that, and I love that. You know, it shocked all of us sort of how quickly God brought about this answer to prayer, and none of us, I don't think any of us ever suspected. I mean, it just didn't even pop into my head one time that you guys might have been the answers to each other's prayers over all the years that you were sitting there right next to each other, praying for each other, asking that God would take care of and bless your work. So thank you again. You know, look up Orchard Point Church, and thanks for watching.